Do you hear that? That's that nasty political noise that's always going on around this time of year. And amidst it all, we can sometimes forget that the position of a public servant is exactly that. A position designed to work for us, we the public. You see, we the voters are the employers in a way, and as such, we are in charge of who gets hired and who to let go. And here in Chautauqua County, we are hiring for a few positions, namely county executive and county legislature. We recorded some job interviews with potential employees. Please take a look. I'm sitting with Dave Wilfong, Mr. Frank Bessie, Michael J. Ferguson, and George Borello. Thank you for coming into the office and doing this interview. We really appreciate it. I understand you're interested in the county running for re-election job. I'd like to start off asking a general question about all candidates. I'd like to get them know them personally. So what can you tell me about yourself generally?
Kind of grew up poor in the city of Jamestown, but at that particular time, the city of Jamestown was a different place. They had a lot of factories where a lot of blue-collar work. So it was a different town than what you see now. I went to Jamestown High School, kind of graduated from there. I went into the U.S. Army 4 years, got out, and then I went to JCC for a little while. I was lucky enough to get hired down at Lutheran Social Services. I worked down there for probably 10 years. Then I got a job out in Olean. I'm the maintenance manager for the rehabilitation center out there. I live over on Norton Avenue, which is kind of between Lincoln and Purcell. Live there with my wife, Beth, and our daughter, Casey, she graduated from college, but now she's doing her internship for WCA in the mental health issue, so she's back home. And I've lived in this town most of my life.
I moved to Jamestown about 10 years ago. Really like being here. I live downtown with my wife, Ginger, and really see that Jamestown's a great place to live, and I've been involved with different businesses over the last several years. I co-own Labyrinth Press Company in Brazil Craft Beer and Wine Lounge, done other business projects, and I also own Chautauqua Soap Company, and really see myself as an entrepreneur, a self-starter, a business person. And we try to do that with our businesses with Labyrinth in Brazil as far as thinking how we can serve the community in different ways and be civic-oriented of how we can best help our neighbors, our community, the city as a whole.
I was born and raised in Silver Creek and Fredonia. I am a 1985 graduate of Fredonia High School and a 1989 graduate of Purdue University. Shortly after college, I started my own company called Top Shelf Marketing in my early 20s, basically. It was a company focused on supplying products and services to the hospitality industry. I grew that company literally from nothing to a nationally recognized supplier to the hospitality industry. I dealt with some of the biggest names in the hospitality industry, including Bacardi and Jim Beam Brands, Disney, and Marriott. If you've ever been to a Hard Rock Cafe,
I have.
Yes, so if you ever had a drink that comes in a glass that you could take home with the Hard Rock Cafe logo on it, we supply those.
So I've known you in spirit actually for some time.
For many years, exactly. In fact, my first product, in fact, was basically taking a plastic test tube and using it as a shot glass. And,
nice.
So that was my first, and again, I was in my 20s at the time.
I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and now I've lived in Chautauqua for over 30 years. I came to Chautauqua County originally with WBUZ Radio in Fredonia, where I met my future wife, Diane, and actually went back to Buffalo for a short period of time before I came back to WKSN WHUG here in Jamestown. From there, I was asked by Greg Peterson, Mike Bellani, and Russ Dietrich to join the Jamestown Jammers front office, where I did as Director of Marketing, Promotions, and Ticket Sales, and within 6 months became General Manager. After that, the league had asked me to go to Wichita, Kansas, where I ran the oldest professional soccer team in America, the Wichita Wings, at Kansas Coliseum, before I came back to Chautauqua County and took over the Jamestown Savings Bank Ice Arena, where we started to refer to it as the Jamestown Savings Bank Arena, because we really opened up the door for programming there. We were the first group to bring in concerts and shows, minor league hockey to NAHL level, and much, much more. So we're very proud of that.
So as a small business person, Do you see business as a good model for local government, or are those two separate things?
Well, I do believe that the government should run more efficiently, and if you wanted to use the term run it as a business, I guess we could. But one of the things that I want to make sure of is that we're providing the services that we need to provide. And I'm not actually talking about snow plowing. I mean, I think that's an easy one. But I would never want to scrimp or save on like mental health services or something like that. Ways for recovery, ways to stop this terrible scourge that's going through our community. And I'm on record for saying that if you want treatment, I want to make sure you have it, but I will not hesitate to throw you in jail too, because I don't want people to think that they can come to Jamestown and peddle their poison.
Right.
I'm very appreciative of what Chief Schnellings and his crew do. I want them to be as tough as nails, but I also want people to have an opportunity to come in and say, hey, I need treatment, and I'd like it to be provided locally. So when we talk about the business, I would like to see it run more efficiently, but I want to make sure that the services are there, because that's what government is. Right. We have to provide those services.
There are similarities and contrasts there with business and government. So you have aspects of hiring and firing, management of people, management of projects, of resources, whether that's labor, time, financial resources, managing debt, and all of those things. Those can be comparable. I think what's interesting about comparing government and business is realizing when sometimes the government can be the best to answer the questions and the needs of the community, and sometimes it's business. And I think that when you really look at things, you will find opportunities for business to solve some of our problems, and you'll find opportunities for government. And that's one of the things that really interests me as someone who's getting into government now. Before being involved with all these businesses, I worked at the Jamestown Renaissance Corporation, and that was a nonprofit. And that's another place where you're seeing that there are opportunities for a nonprofit to step in and work with our different partners to solve community problems. And so that's where I'm looking at nonprofits, small business, and government, and they all have different tools at their disposal to solve the different problems that we have here. And that's what I'm excited about, is finding the different ways we can do that.
I think they work together hand in hand. What I learned most is the impact of government on small business. So while you try to govern and you try to really legislate based on what you carry in your heart, being a small business owner and knowing the struggles of dealing with taxation and government regulation and so forth. So you take those things and you keep that perspective. In my opinion, one of the reasons that we live in a state that's considered to be one of the most oppressive states when it comes to regulation and taxation is because most of our state legislators have never been in business. They don't know what it means to have to make a payroll or to deal with all the regulations that they create that often impede business with good intentions, but in the end, it's the unintended consequences that we have to deal with. Really, government is not business. And you hear a lot of people say, we got to run government like a business. And that's not necessarily true, because in business, you find the quickest, most efficient path from point A to point B, and then you execute that path. Mm-hmm. In government, you don't. You have to go through the twists and turns of different interests and different organizations and different regulations, and it's not a straight path. Mm-hmm. So that takes a little bit of a different finesse.
There's limitations to the analogy then between a business and government.
Exactly, because at the county, we about 85% of the county's budget is controlled by unfunded state mandates. So imagine if you ran a business where you only had control over 15% of your budget, and somebody else was with not your best interest at heart is controlling the other 85%.
I think it depends on who the business person is that's running the business at that point. I think that analogy might have been backfiring on the national level at this point, but I think Jamestown has done a pretty good job of that. I think Dunkirk is trying very, very hard, and I know some of the other communities are starting to look at this as it is a business venture. Mm-hmm. Basically, when you elect one of us, if you hire one of us for this particular job, you're asking that tomorrow is better than today. In this job, we'll be spending taxpayers' money. Mm-hmm. And no matter what people say, they say, well, this is state money, or this is federal money, or it's all taxpayers' money. Right. It all comes from the same bucket. So you're asking someone to come on and do the job of making decisions to invest that money wisely and do what's best for the community and for families that currently live here. to be able to sustain those families with a great wage, and then also that their kids, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be able to live here as well.
Every businessman looks to some successful person in the past, and I can't think of anyone more successful than Henry Ford. We all know and love him, right? And he said that, and this is a quote, "Failure is only the opportunity to begin again, only this time more wisely." And I was wondering if you could think of an example from your business career or your personal life in which that quote might apply to you, in which you made a mistake, learned from it, and were able to go on to success.
The very first time I foyered into politics, I really got that phone call sitting at my island there eating my Cheerios in my old gym shorts and what I would consider the old wife beater T-shirt.
That sounds like a great campaign ad, by the way. I'd love to see that.
I should get a video on that. And I really didn't know what I was doing, but I did enjoy going out and doing it. And of course, I lost. I lost quite largely. But I didn't give up on that because I had had such a good time and I really liked doing it. So like I said, I got involved with the Tom Reed campaign. And my good friend, and still friend today, Jacqueline Sherratt, she was running that office. I think she's still down there today. She kind of took me under her wing and we went door to door. We passed out literature. We bought signs and put signs out. And that kind of taught me how to be a political candidate, if you will.
Well, most recently we had a failure, I think. ICE was opposed to the sale of the South County office building right here in downtown Jamestown. And I talked to the Democrats on the legislature, and they all agreed that this was a bad move for our community. It was not a good deal. And I tried to, raise this concern to people throughout the community and encourage people to get a hold of their legislator. And I spoke out against this at the legislature meeting where they had this vote. And after all of that was said and done, they still voted to sell the building. Mm-hmm. And that was frustrating for me. But I looked at myself and I said, well, I learned about this, how all of this works, and I hopefully will take that and see how we can improve on communication and making a stronger case and what we can do in the future to maybe convince people of a different way of doing things or the alternative. And failure doesn't discourage me. In business you fail a lot, and if you don't have that tough skin, you're not going to make it. And in government, I see a lot of people fail all the time, whether they are proposing legislation that doesn't get passed or they're working really hard on an issue to gain momentum and it doesn't work out. And I will not be discouraged by that. And it's definitely going to happen. I think if you're trying anything ambitious, you're going to fail. And I'm ready for that, and I'm excited to persevere through those issues.
I have a tremendous responsibility as a legislator, and if so as county executive, to be a good steward of that fund, of those funds. And it's different when you're dealing with your own money. And unfortunately, I don't think enough people take that into consideration. There are things that I would do personally to take risk with my own finances because with risk often comes reward.
Bigger the risk, bigger the reward, but also bigger the fall too.
Exactly, absolutely. So contracts with our public employees, the CSEA and so forth. And there's something called binding arbitration in New York State. It's under the Taylor Law. And what it essentially means is that if the governing body and the union cannot come to an agreement, it will go to binding arbitration. So what happens is that you end up going to binding arbitration, and I'll see where I'm coming back around to this question about money and investments. I should not be going to the binding arbitration casino with the taxpayers' money betting on something where I know the odds are stacked against me. Mm-hmm. That's not my responsibility. So I'll take the hit politically for voting for a pay increase when most people who are against it don't know all the details. And at the end of the day, I think it's right that we pay people fairly for the job that they do. But I'll take the hit from fellow conservatives or whatever you want to say because it was the responsible thing to do.
You have to get back up and brush off and forget the last game or forget the last point in order to be successful anywhere. That's coming from behind. So me personally, I think we fail almost on a weekly basis, but we make it up with success. Mm-hmm. To give you an idea, just take the arena for instance.
Okay.
Not every concert was a home run. Some concerts were sold out within 30 minutes. Some events were big hits. Other events maybe not so much. We tried doing a car show at the arena. And I can remember hearing crickets in the building at the time. And
Maybe
yet,
motorcycles would have been
there you
better,
go.
yeah.
And yet I remember when REO Speedwagon came to town and there wasn't a seat to be held.
There you go.
So you learn from those mistakes. I think one of the things that we do best, and people say, why do you say we? Because it's not about just me. I always tell people, if you were in professional sports, you don't want to be the coach or the general manager, because no matter what happens with the team, you're the one out the door. So we build a team. It's a team concept. I think people want to be led. They don't want to be managed. They don't want to be supervised. So team dynamic is what we would bring to county office.
Well, we've reached the end of our interview process here, but I just always ask this question. Do you have any final thoughts or questions you'd like to ask?
Well, no, I just hope that the people from District 11 realize that I have been looking out for their best interests. Believe it or not, I don't hear from my constituents as much as you would think.
Okay. And why do you think that is?
I don't know if they don't feel like they could reach out. I hope that they don't think that there's no need of complaining or there's no need to reach out to Dave Wolfong because he's not going to do things. Now, myself and George Barilla, we're co-sponsoring a bill that we'll be voting on tonight that's going to allow people who build new homes in the city of Jamestown tax relief. And if you are a owner-occupied home, you'll be able to do some renovations on that home and have an escalating scale on the tax base of that.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come in today and interview for this position. I'm really excited for the opportunity. I've been trying really hard to make my case, and I really hope that I can be considered for this position. I know that if I'm hired, I will try my best to make Chautauqua County a better place. I think that at the end of the day is something that people who have known me for the last several years know, that I care about our community and that pretty much every single day I do something in attempts to making our neighborhood and our community a better place.
I would certainly appreciate getting this job. I feel I'm the right person for this job of county executive. I have a tremendous track record both as a business person and as a county legislator. I've had some great successes as a county legislator. As I mentioned, developing the Lake Erie Management Commission, all the success we've had with the Regional Solutions Commission, many other things, initiatives that we've passed in Chautauqua County, that we've lowered property taxes, we've reduced the burden of government. All those are things that I will use as a template for my administration and for taking this job as county executive. So I have a track record. And what I like to tell to people is this: my opponent can tell you what he would like to do, but I can show you what I've done. And that's the difference between us.
I think we go back to what Mark Thomas, a former county executive, said, and that is we have a plan. And I hope that you, as an employer, will consider that, because that goes back to our competitive nature. We bring Plan A to the table, and if Plan A doesn't work, there's a Plan B and a Plan C. Sitting back and waiting for jobs to come to us, which is why I'm here for this job interview.
Yes.
I think we've done that a little bit too long. We've been reactive to situations in our community. We won't leave any stone unturned. We'll look at every opportunity for success for each city, each town, each village, and for Chautauqua County as a whole.
We will certainly let you know November 7th if we're going to hire you again.
Okay, thank you very
November
much. Thank you
7th.
for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, how'd they do? What do you think? Who fits your vision of the county? Well, on November 7th, it's you who gets to decide. That shouldn't come as a surprise to you, I hope. If you need more information on voting, you can go to votechautauqua.com. Stay tuned for more episodes as we continue our job search and try to hire those who will best serve our common ground.